Hi, this is Mrs. Edwards, and I'm going to go over some test-taking strategies for reading tests that really help some of my students. I wanted to share them with you all. So first, one of the biggest things you can do when you're taking a test is to stay calm. Make sure that you remember that the test is just going to show what you've already learned, and if you can remain calm and just focus on showing what you know, you're going to do just fine, and that's the first step in going through it. Second, you want to make sure you read through the questions first, if possible. Now, on some tests, especially some computer-based tests, you are not able to get to the questions until you read through the passage. But for opportunities when you can, read through those questions first, especially if there's only a few. It'll set a purpose for your reading, and it'll allow you to go back and find those in the text easier and quicker when you do revisit those questions. And then you want to read the passages very carefully. It's important that you are able to go through and find those answers in the test, and if you can get to the questions and answer them as you read, that's perfectly fine. But you also want to be sure to annotate as you go through and read the test. Passages when you're looking for repeated ideas, for example, and some of the key thoughts that you're noticing about it, looking at that passage in its entirety so that you can go back and understand some of the author's purpose and some of those big ideas that you're going to find as opposed to specific questions, because some of those questions really can't be answered until you read the entire text. So don't be tempted to go through and read part of it, answer a question, and then just skip over the rest of it, because it'll really help you understand the whole text better. And then you want to make sure that you read every answer choice when you do your answers. You don't want to be tempted to go through and just choose answer A or B and not check through C or D, because you might find that one answer is a little bit better. And one of the things that tests will often do will have just a very small difference between a couple of answer choices, and one might be a little bit of a trick. For example, some of the answer choices will list 3 or 4 items that you're supposed to choose, and 3 of them may be correct, but one may be inaccurate, and you want to look for that specifically. Another thing that we do in our classes, we call it slash that trash. When you go through and read those answer choices, if you know of one that just jumps out at you that's definitely not the answer, go ahead and eliminate that for yourself so that it narrows down your choices, and then you can go back if you're kind of stuck between 2 or 3 and revisit that text and narrow it down even further so that it'll help you be more accurate. You also want to make sure that you plug in the words when you have options to fill in the blanks. Read through the entire sentence every time plugging in a word for that blank, and it'll help you hear through the sentence in your mind a little bit better so that you can make a good guess on that. Also, when you do get to a question that you're really struggling with and you find yourself spending a long time on that question, it's a good idea to go ahead and make a guess, especially if you've been able to eliminate 1 or 2 answer choices. Make a guess and move on so that you don't spend too long on it, especially on a timed test. But make sure that you put a note for yourself on your scratch paper, and so that you can go back and revisit that question and spend a little more time on it at the end if you have time. It would always be better to have an answer choice there if you're unsure, but not spend too long on it. So that's another idea that you can use. Also, you want to make sure that you do check every answer choice once you get to the end and you feel like you've finished all of the questions, because you want to make sure that you haven't skipped over a question and that you've also answered them correctly if possible. You don't want to be tempted to just stop at the end. A lot of students get to the last question and they just want to stop, put their pencil down, and be done. And even though you're going to be glad to be finished, you also want to make sure that you use all of your time wisely so that you can go back and look at questions that you know you struggled with, and you might want to double check and make sure that they're correct and that you didn't skip over a question on your answer sheet. So again, you just want to make sure you remain calm through all of it. Don't allow yourself to be stressed out or concerned about it, and you're going to do great.